They picked up 238 brown men and shipped them to their death, a foreign gulag. And for that reason alone, Donald Trump should be impeached, folks. I just heard this absolutely horrific menu that you just ate, where you mentioned the three, not just one, but three fast food chains that are designed to make you die at an early age. And so, we need people to fight fascism, not by, literally supersizing their death. So that's just my intervention. This is me intervening on behalf of the internets.
I'm listening to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., giving me health advice. So hopefully that'll help, Wajahat. What did you make of the press conference earlier today where it appeared as though Pete Hegseth, his only objective was an audience of one in Donald Trump, and all he did was attack the media, and he really didn't answer any questions?
Well, I mean, very astute observation there, the audience of one. And I think that's really important for people to remember. When it comes to all these reeks, a Game of Thrones reference for those who don't know, that's an individual who was abused and tortured to the point where he had no identity, and he just became a reek, a yes man, a dog for his master. These people, ever since Sean Spicer came out, old school reference, right? 2017, the first presser. Brian, you and I keep receipts. What did Sean Spicer's, what was the first presser about? Can you tell folks?
First presser, he lied and he talked about the incredible attendance, the largest attendance of any inauguration in the history, when we know that was factually inaccurate, a flat out lie.
And he gaslit the world. We have eyes, right? In 1984, it said the final command of the party was reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. And I remember I was on CNN with this panel of like 12 people, and I was the only one who said, folks, what we're witnessing right now is not normal. We've never seen anything like this. And they're like, no, he'll moderate and he'll be okay, right? He'll grow up. He's this grown-ass man who's in his late 60s at the time, and he'll become presidential, right? How we keep infantilizing Donald Trump. And I said, no, the audience is one, Donald Trump. And Sean Spicer went there and humiliated himself to promote the MAGA lie, the lie that Donald Trump wanted. And fast forward now in 2025, 80% of Republican voters, Brian, believe the big lie that Donald Trump won the election in 2020 that he lost. So here's Pete Hegseth, right? A complete disaster, a man who's so bad at his job that military.com, which is doing great reporting, by the way, revealed that he has lost the confidence of our armed service members, right? They don't trust him, even though he cosplays like an alpha man and releases videos of him jogging with the units and Navy SEALs. They don't respect this guy. They know he's a friggin' fraud, a lily white, makeup wearing, Fox News host, right? Secondly, they said that he's so incompetent that even within the MAGA universe, folks, he cannot find advisors. Why? Because he threw his advisors under the bus. Some of the great controversies that have come out that have been buried is that Pete Hegseth allegedly illegally wiretapped his own staff as pretext to get them fired, right? In addition to that, Peter, several Signalgate controversies, not just one, as this guy is using an unsecure line, which the Pentagon has said, by the way, do not use Signal. It's an unsecure app that can be hijacked and, interfered with by our, enemies like Russia. So he has a dirty line in his office and has used the Signal app.
I'm going to ask you about that, Wajahat.
Publicly share war plans.
Right. And I want to ask you about that because Caroline Leavitt and the Trump administration want to go after this person who put out this information, this intelligence about the attack, the Iran attack, and they want to get down to business and find the person who did this, put him in jail, you name it. What about Pete Hegseth? What about the Signal chat that you just mentioned about? Shouldn't it start with the top? Now, listen, I'm all in favor of that. If somebody releases, intelligence information that's highly classified, I want them held to the highest extent of the law. But shouldn't it start with the top and Pete Hegseth?
It's all projection. Cruelty for you, civility for me, safe spaces for me, no safe spaces for thee, right? So if I'm them, I'm like, maybe I should get rid of the guy who, along with all the other national security heads, was on an unsecure app sharing literal copy-paste war plans. That's what Hegseth did. He copy-pasted the war plans. And who was on that Signal thread, folks? I want to bring the receipts because if this was Democrats, this would be nonstop news for 4 years, right? The editor of The Atlantic was accidentally invited, right? And then the editor of The Atlantic is like, folks, I'm going to just announce that I'm here. I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Peace out, right? And if, God forbid, someone else, our enemies got access to that information, you know what they would do? Like what happened with Iran. If you're telegraphing that you're going to attack Iran, you know what Iran did? I'm going to just move my enriched uranium,
Right.
right? If you're
Right.
telling me that you're going to attack me, I'm going to move. And allegedly they did. And so what, God forbid, can you imagine if our enemies had gone that those coordinates and that war plan? Our troops would be in threat. So Pete Hegseth should have been fired immediately. So they don't go after those leakers. What they're going after instead is the person, the individual who apparently leaked this information, right? That we could clearly see from our own eyes that they did not destroy the reactor. And what I think, which is what this is the exquisite news that no one's talking about, who's leaking? The Trump administration. I think Susan Wiles, I'm just putting it out there, and others are leaking all this shit about Pete Hegseth, because how else would we know? How else would we know, Brian? So it's MAGA turning on MAGA, which I
agree.
love.
What an interesting moment today, Wajahat. And by the way, I agree with what you just said. You have a distinguished and well-respected on both sides of the aisle Fox News reporter. I don't say that very often. There's not many Fox News.
She's respected, right?
Yeah, she's very, very good, and she's very professional. And you had a moment where she asked Pete Hegseth about what you were just talking about. There's video of this. There were trucks that they were sent out to that facility days before the bombing. She asked a very logical question to Pete Hegseth. Not only does he not answer the question, but he attacks her personally. What did you make of that moment?
That was so disgusting, because it shows you a man of no character. Because in addition to attacking her, people forget that she was Jen Griffin. She was his colleague. She was his colleague, right? They knew each other. And she said, you know what? I don't care. I'm even going to go after you publicly, Jen Griffin, and question your integrity, your ethics, and your work. And she, good for her, replied back and stood up for herself a little bit. But this was a man bombastically, pathetically defending not just himself, but defending the incompetence of the Trump administration and trying to bully everyone else to get in line. And last night they went after CNN reporter Natasha Bertrand. Natasha Bertrand's reporting is consistent with what everyone else has said, right? That they did not destroy all the facilities. We've seen the photos, right? That Iran also not only did not destroy the facilities, they just set back Iran's programs by a couple of months. And not only did they set back their program by a couple of months, Brian, what no one's asking is, you just blew up what was nuclear disarmament, right? If you had just stuck to the treaty that you blew up the treaty, the U.S.-Iran deal that Obama successfully negotiated, you blew it up, and then that's what caused acceleration. And now, as a result of you unilaterally joining Israel's war, if I'm a Middle Eastern country, forget a Middle Eastern country, Brian, if I'm any country, you know what I'm thinking right now? You know what I got to do? I got to get a nuclear weapon. Because whoever has a nuclear weapon, like, I don't know, Israel or North Korea, you know what Donald Trump does to those countries? Exchanges love letters with those countries. So why should I trust the United States of America? Iran, terrible leadership. Iran complied with diplomacy. It says, okay, we're coming to good faith. They were working with the Obama administration. And U.S., specifically Trump, blew it up. And then connecting the dots to Signalgate, if you're an ally, why would you trust the United States after you saw what the United States did to Iran? And also the fact that all these mother effers are on Signalgate. Would you trust them with intelligence? You tell me, Brian.
Of course not. And correct me if I'm wrong. If we go back in time, because the Trump administration, they want to blame Joe Biden and Barack Obama for everything. Obama actually stopped nuclear Iran, but not with bombs, but with diplomacy. And you never hear anybody on the right talk about that. Obama wasn't dropping bombs. He was able to get it done without doing that.
Well, he dropped bombs in Libya, and so there is a war boner that both Democrats and Republicans have had, especially when it came to the Middle East. But specifically with Iran, you're absolutely right. Diplomacy worked. So if you want to make Iran more safe, if you want to make it more responsible, if you want nuclear disarmament, you do what Obama did. But first administration, Trump comes in, gets dog-walked by Netanyahu yet again, and hates the fact that Obama did this. What does he do? Blows it up. And as he was about to blow it up, even his Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, who was initially a hawk, like so many people were, he said, I try to keep the receipts, I was originally against the U.S.-Iran deal because Iran, is a reckless agent, and we don't want to support that government. But you know what? We should keep it. This is actually working. And as a result of blowing it up, and now as a result of engaging in this unilateral illegal strike on Iran, joining Israel, what you have done is ramped up the race towards nuclear armament. Because if I'm Iran, right, and I'm speaking and I'm thinking about my survival, I realize I can't trust America. And I realize if I get a nuclear weapon, they can't do this shit to me, right? So if anything, like everything Trump touches, he made it worse. He made it worse. And this is where, Brian, not just Democrats, but even there's an America First portion of MAGA, right? Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey. And I even said this on Piers Morgan. I said, if Trump, who's a piece of shit, who I hate, if Trump could be the first president in my lifetime who actually tells Israel, F you. You better stop occupying, stop the genocide, stop the settlements, stop unilaterally striking Iran with, you can't do it with our weapons and our money anymore. You know what would have happened? Israel would stop because it needs our support. And I would have said, well done, Trump. You did something that every other president should have done, but he got dog walked by Netanyahu. And it was because of his ego, Brian. The reporting says it was because of vibes, not intelligence. He threw Tulsi Gabbard under the bus. And if he's throwing Tulsi Gabbard under the bus and saying, I don't trust her intelligence, that means he's not trusting U.S. intelligence. So the question I have for you, Brian, if Donald Trump, the president of the United States of America, ain't trusting U.S. intelligence, whose intelligence is he relying upon?
Well, I think he made it very clear. Israel's intelligence and even Iran. Of course, Iran is going to say that their nuclear capabilities were blown to smithereens because they don't want to be attacked anymore. And now all of a sudden, Donald Trump is going to listen to Iran. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And last I checked, Israel's intelligence helped George W. Bush lead into an ill-advised war where we were told weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And we're not listening to our own intelligence because it only makes Donald Trump look bad.
That literally what you said. In my entire lifetime, I've had Benjamin Netanyahu come up every decade and say Iran has a nuclear weapon. And literally 90 days ago, Tulsi Gabbard, of all people, said, no, Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. All the intelligence agencies said, nope, it does not. It's not close to having a nuclear weapon. But Netanyahu, who's been saying this for 3 decades, and you and I are old enough, Brian, we remember 9/11, and remember look, with Bush, they had to lie. They had to engineer a lie to go to war to Iraq, right? Trump didn't even lie, just on a whim he did it, right? And that theater that they did, right, with Colin Powell humiliating himself with that vial of showing the vial of anthrax, and right, Benjamin Netanyahu came all the way from Israel and supported that war course and said, you have to join in attacking Iran. And thankfully, Bush said, no, we'll just do a disastrous war against Iraq and Afghanistan. And instead, he's been on it for 3 decades. Even last year, Netanyahu came to U.S. Congress. And what did he say? U.S., I need your help to bomb Iran. And Biden said, nah. Biden didn't meet him, if you recall, right? And Kamala Harris gave a very kind of awkward stance, no bear hug. So this is why elections matter, right? I think Biden was disastrous when it came to Gaza. I think he enabled and emboldened Netanyahu, who felt like he could do this without any repercussions. But it was Democrats, and specifically Obama, who had the diplomacy, and the diplomacy worked. And it actually shows Democrats. I want Democrats to come out and say this. The failure of Democrats. Why aren't they reminding people that it was Democrats who had diplomacy, right? That Donald Trump lied. He went against his own promise. He was supposed to be America first. It was supposed to be about peace and security. He said that Biden would lead us into war with Iran. No, it's Trump's war. But this is where the Democratic Party is. Maybe they should hire you and me, man.
I wish they would. JD Vance the other day saying that we're not at war. There are actually people in Donald Trump's administration saying we're not at war, Wajahat. And I say to them, if another country did this to us, is that what we would say? Oh, no, we're not at war. Everything's just fine. Of course we're at war. Of course.
It was the dumbest thing. JD Vance said, we're not at war with Iran. We're just at war with its nuclear facilities. That's like saying we're not at war with Afghanistan. We're just at war with its mountain and caves. We're not into, and he said we're not into regime change. And so did Pete Hegseth. And Donald Trump, a few hours later, throws them under the bus with an insane Truth Social post saying, MAGA, make Iran great again. Yes, we're perhaps into regime change. This is what happens when you have buffoons and corrupt criminals and idiots running. They do it based off vibes. And we still don't know what Putin's saying behind the scenes, right? Because Putin is allies with Iran. So Putin, as we know, for some strange reason, Donald Trump always bends the knee to Putin. I wonder why. It's the world's dumbest people. And everyone knows, well, you should know by now because it's been 10 years, Donald Trump, whoever whispers in his ear last, that's the person who's most influential. And the New York Times reporting said that he was watching Fox, as he does, instead of literally reading his security briefings, because he doesn't like to read them. And Tulsi Gabbard, again, there was a leak that came out about 3 weeks ago that since this mother effer has not read any security briefings aside from 14, right, that she's trying to condense and edit the security briefings into Fox News style hits, folks, just to get this mother effer to pay attention, right? But he can't even do that. So he's watching Fox, and he says, oh, it's playing well on Fox because Fox brought on all the neocons and hawks and warmongers. That's why he wanted to take credit for it. And internally, probably was Hegseth and Ruby and others. They were like, We wish Tucker Carlson was still on Fox so he could get a different view. This is the man that a majority of Americans decide to vote for as president.
Absolutely absurd. And Wajahat, what's really unfortunate about all this is that this is, correct me if I'm wrong, day 77. We were told 90 deals in 90 days. This is now day 77. How many great deals have been made? We're still talking about, the fact that inflation is not down, gas prices are not down, unemployment rate has gone up. And oh yeah, by the way, the war in Ukraine is still going strong. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, America's just crushing it, right? Also, measles are skyrocketing. Tourism is going down. People see us as a shithole country. Allies are turning away from us. Like you said, consumer confidence in America has gone down. Moody's, for the first time ever, has downgraded our credit rating. But other than that, it's going awesome.
Unbelievable. And now we're just learning breaking news that I guess Garcia, this man who was sent to an El Salvador prison, is now going to be deported to another country other than El Salvador after the release from Tennessee. Yeah, that just broke just now. And I do find that very, very interesting. That's according to the Associated Press, because all this time we've heard from Stephen Miller and the Trump administration, he needs to be sent to his home country, which is El Salvador. And now it turns out he's going to be sent somewhere else. So it contradicts everything that they've said.
And it just shows you the cruelty, because they cannot concede that they made a mistake after already conceding that they made a mistake. If I was Donald Trump, this is what I would do. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, ICE effed up, not me, and I'm the one who saved you. That's because that's what they do, right? They burn the house down and they come with the buckets of water and say, see, I'm the fireman. I'm the one that saved you. Then I'd invite him to the White House. I'd have a beer with him. He doesn't drink beer, so I'll give Kilmar a beer. Donald Trump would drink a Diet Coke, and then they would have tacos. But he can't have a taco anymore because taco now means Trump always chickens out. So I'd have a burger. I'd have a burger with Kilmar. Put my arm around him. Take a photo op, and it would help. It would help his poll numbers. But the problem is, folks, they're so cruel. They're so vicious. They're so racist.
Yep.
And Stephen Miller is the one running the show. That even though ICE admitted that they sent him as a mistake, even though the judge has demanded he gets sent back, they're trumping up fake allegations against this man. I hope he sues them, but most importantly, I hope he comes home. This is a man from Maryland, committed zero crimes, legally here, folks, has a wife, has kids. He was a brown man. They picked up 238 brown men and shipped them to their death, a foreign gulag. And for that reason alone, Donald Trump should be impeached, folks.
I do also find it interesting that a lot of MAGA Republicans say he's a woman abuser. By the way, never been convicted of a crime in this country. Sure. But yet, when it comes to Donald Trump, who's a 34-count convicted felon, oh no, that was a kangaroo court. I do find that very interesting, Wajahat.
It's all projection all the time. And a man who literally was held liable for rape, sexual assault, and defamation against E. Jean Carroll, fraud, and a man who incited a violent insurrection and then pardoned the violent insurrectionists, including those people who beat up cops and some people who had violent criminal offenses and a violent past. It's all projection. It's all fascism. And what we need now, we need fighters, Brian. We need fighters, right? If you're unwilling to meet this moment, if you're unwilling to fight, you are useless to me, right? And I'm talking about the Democrats. You are useless to me. Just retire, resign, you trade stocks, you're all millionaires, get the F out of the way. And if they're not going to get the F out of the way, primary them. There needs to be a culling of the Democratic Party, because this is what we're dealing with as they're literally terrorizing our communities.
Couldn't agree with you more. Wajahat, you're one of the best in the business. The Left Hook Substack is phenomenal. I was watching your podcast earlier today, Democracy-ish podcast. It was absolutely great. And you had a great interview on there too. Appreciate what you do. How do people follow you, and how do people watch your stuff? Give out that information for the listeners.
Yeah, Daniel and I had Representative Ro Khanna on, and thank you for watching. I thought I don't know if we grilled them. We did what most journalists should have done. We asked about the inconsistencies of his record, the inconsistencies of the Democratic Party, and we demanded he do better. So that's out already on Democracy-ish on Daniel Moody's YouTube. It's going to be out on my Left Hook Substack. It's the lefthook.substack.com. And I just interviewed Peter Beinart about why Mamdani's win shatters so many of these BS narratives about Muslims and Jews hating each other and about everyone must support Israel. Just shatters all these myths that you can't be woke and you can't be a person of color and you can't lean into supporting undocumented immigrants and Palestinians. Just nonsense. And you're seeing, Brian, in real time, as of now, the Democratic establishment is unleashing all of its firepower, not against Trump, against Mamdani.
Yep. Yep. No doubt about that. Wajahat, I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work. And again, we got to get on Pierce Morgan together one of these days. We got to work.
We were supposed to be on last week, and then they bumped me and then brought you. That's what happens. And we'll do it when I come back. Sorry that there's kids around everywhere, folks.
No, that's okay. That's okay. There are hopefully no Elon Musk's children in that area.
No, only my own. My own seed.
All right, fair enough. Wajahat, you're the best, my friend. I love you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And we'll catch up with you soon, my friend. Thank you.
Take
care. That's Wajahat Ali, everybody. One of the best in the business, Democracy-ish podcast, which I was watching intently this morning. He really is great. And the Left Hook Substack. Wajahat's one of the best. I really do appreciate him. And I'm very lucky that in my Rolodex, I have people like that.